Things people ask LGBTQ+ parents. How did that happen? Do you ask straight couples this? Please don't. Please don't ask anyone. No one wants to tell you about their sex life, or their trip to the clinic, or how much money they did or did not spend making a baby. Side note, they also don't want to tell you the potentially traumatic backstories of their adopted or fostered children. No one owes you their history. And FYI, it's not a joke if it's only funny to you. It's just boring, sweetie.
When I go dumpstering with someone for the first time, I try to pay attention to the look on their face when I first hand them something like a pizza. Everyone reacts a bit differently. Like, it's pretty cool that you can find a cantaloupe and 3 bags of oranges in the trash, but it's also pretty gross. You get out of the dumpster and the ride home stinks of trash, and then you have to touch those pizzas all over again, and they make the most interesting sounds, and the faces people make when they eat the pizza make all the grossness worth it. We get to play with our food, like, I wonder what we could do with 15 pounds of fruit and some whipping cream. I guess we've got no choice but to whip it. It's kind of messy, but what else could we possibly do with those strawberries? Eating fruit with people who helped you harvest it from the trash and then clean it and then performatively eat it in front of a camera for likes is a particular kind of experience. Well, yeah. The food is special, and we treat it that way. It came from our shared effort, and when we eat it, it's nourishing.
White supremacy benefits from maladaptive cluster B traits because white supremacy needs people to have damaged empathy so that it can continue to have a hierarchical system. If your empathy is fully intact, you don't look at a hierarchical system and go, yeah, that's just, that's fair. You don't look at the value of people and human beings and see that as something that is measurable, or that it could be degraded because of something about that person. Because if your empathy is intact, then you can feel that humans have inherent value. Most of us don't have intact empathy, so we need to think our ways into seeing humans with inherent value.
Get up, cocksuckers, it's all over. Listen, we had a rough couple of months. Fucking Katrina's
From what I've gathered from the comments and my personal research, both ADHD and autistic people tend to gravitate more towards anecdotal communication, which I've done a video on, whereas allistic and non-ADHD people tend to gravitate more towards question-based communication. When you're speaking to someone who isn't autistic or doesn't have ADHD, or who comes from a culture where anecdotal communication isn't very common, the act of interjecting your own story after they share a story can be seen as an interruption. For example, with the Frank Ocean concert, if someone were to say, I went to a Frank Ocean concert last night, it was amazing, by me responding, oh shoot, I saw Frank Ocean last year, he was incredible live, someone who doesn't gravitate towards anecdotal conversation would see that as me interrupting their story and cutting them off and saying, I'm not interested in hearing any more of what you have to say, instead of taking that as me saying, oh my goodness, I am also really interested in this topic and I am really excited by what you have to say. They would see it as, oh cool, let's talk about me now because I don't care about your story. The pause is them looking for engagement, looking to see if you're interested in the story, looking to see if they should continue on. If you are someone who communicates anecdotally, after I share my bit about how I saw him last year, then the other person would jump on and be like, oh, that's so cool that you saw him last year at my show. He was super engaging with the crowd. He was so engaging with the crowd at my show as well. And he did this encore performance that was crazy. Yeah, he did the encore too. Did he play this song for the encore? No, the show that I saw was from his previous album. When he goes on tour next, we should totally go together. It'd be so much fun. That is kind of like an anecdotal conversation. What non-ADHD and allistic people tend to prefer is, I went to Frank Ocean last night. His concert was amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What was your favorite song he performed? My favorite song was this, this, and this, and that, and that. Tell me more. Did anything interesting happen at the concert? Inviting them to share more about their story because they want to gauge if you're actually interested in hearing them talk about this. I'm thinking about all the conversations that have ended abruptly after I've shared a personal story and how good of a conversation we could have had if instead of the person assuming that I was trying to monopolize or center myself in the conversation, they just continued to share whatever story they wanted to share. I'm usually not trying to center myself or monopolize, and I want everybody to be equally engaged in the discussion. I'm just excited and sharing my thoughts.
Sometimes I feel like for white liberals, Black people are more of a theoretical concept that they can intellectualize than actual people. Whenever white liberals say things like XYZ thing disproportionately affects Black people, does a mental image of a Black person or a Black family pop up in their head, or are we more of an abstract concept to them? Do they perceive Black people as comprehensive human beings with hobbies and personalities and interests, or are we nothing more than our oppression?
This one is for the boys with the boom, the system, Comptown, AC with the coolest system. When they come up in the club, he be blazing up. Got stacks on deck like he's saving up. And he ill, he feel, he bring got a deal. He pop bottles and they got that right kind of bill. He cold, he dope, he brings up. He be always in the air, but he never fly couch.
I think all the Minecraft comments I got on my clay series are really cute. People saying, oh, it's just like Minecraft. You get the clay from the ground, it's just like Minecraft. I think Minecraft's a really wonderful game. And even though a lot of it's fantasy, I think the bits that are realistic are really well done. And it really is just like Minecraft. I did get this clay out of the ground, cleaned it up myself, and now I'm crafting things out of it. Now I don't know if you could tell, but I thought the best thing to start with was something in the game that's actually made with clay, so I'm doing my best to make a little flower pot. I'm a little bit worried about when I fire it, because even when I made a box like this for school and used like a real kiln, it's still cracked. And it might just explode too. But let's hope it doesn't, because I think this would be a really cute flower pot to use someday. I also did my best to make it as square as possible. Like when it was mostly dried out, I'd just scrape off the sides. And that's probably also going to contribute to its structural weakness. But it is pretty square.
Europe was never more advanced than indigenous pops. European inhumanity came as quite the big shock. Europeans in America preferred indigenous life, and Americans in Europe didn't see the hype. The indigenous critique of European existence was bad for Eurocentric colonizer evangelists. They needed some way to make Europe not look like shit, so made up material economic progress. They imagined every society must be more or less advanced based on the way that they gathered food. All societies ranked along this linear path because to Europeans it made Europe look good. So instead of other societies being contemporaries with varied ideas about dignified human life, Europeans pretended other people were hardly human at all to legitimize colonization and genocide.
Let's critically analyze this video in its comment section. Skin bleaching is the cosmetic procedure that lightens dark areas of the skin to be generally paler. Practices of this have been traced back to ancient Greece and Egypt, where many people at these time periods would use different oil mixtures to protect their skin from the sun and to keep it a consistent color. Skin bleaching isn't inherently bad. Your melanocytes are constantly producing new cells, so if and when you do choose to stop bleaching, the formation of new pigment will occur. Many people use skin bleach to treat things like hyperpigmentation, melasma, and other skin disorders. So why are people reacting negatively in the comment section? Due to colonialism, paler skin throughout the whole Western world became the standard for desirability. It became the symbol of wealth and high status. Many white women of high class during the 19th century would invest in arsenic pills because if ingested, they were believed to keep the pale look of the skin in the face. During colonization, the white man pushed for the belief that he was superior because he was white and others weren't. This led to the disparity of light and dark people within racial minorities, ultimately creating colorism. In conclusion, the person in this video along with the sound is perpetuating the same ideal or an adjacent one that lighter is better.
Oh, so you're apexual. I'm not even sure. Sometimes I think it's more like an autism thing, like overstimulation. Well, are you attracted to people? Sometimes, I guess. You seem unsure. When I see my wife, I just think about her sitting on my... No. I get what you're saying. Like, there are also times you look at your wife and you don't think about... Sure. I mean, last week we were at a funeral. We have moods, and there's certainly times that I'm distracted by things like odors. Oh, don't be one of those. No. I love a good sit. For me, it's breath. It's always breath. Yeah, I'm incredibly aware of my breath, and when I get close to other people, I smell theirs. Oh, come on, just chew some gum, man. Gum covers your breath, but sometimes, leave saliva behind, and usually I'm fine, but sometimes it's really distracting, and then I feel bad. Good God, just go to the dentist. I have. It's not a bad breath thing. Yeah, I am really sensitive to smells. Like, you've got a weird odor coming from your air conditioning. What? Yeah. So you two don't have pecs. I love pecs, but I also understand the overstimulation thing. Like, if I've had a rough day or I'm at someone else's place, I don't know, sometimes it feels like I'm just trying to get through it. And then I feel really guilty for feeling that in the moment, and it just makes it worse. Yep. So, like, all the time? For me? Actually, yeah. It's kind of like when you give your partner a back rub. Like, I love making my partner feel good, but it's more of a task for me. I don't like being touched and hair in my face and the temperature. So it sounds more like an autism thing than being apexual. But I don't even really do it on my own. That's where you and I would differ. Okay, well, like, when you see someone naked, like, what do you feel? I don't know. That one I'm a little confused on. So, corn. Like, I don't really look that often, but when I do, I think it might be more of a curiosity thing. Oh, I mean, that I understand. I kind of want to see everyone naked. Everyone? Adults. But yeah, I mean, the human body is fascinating. Do you ever, like, think someone is, like, aesthetically attractive, but not pexually? Yeah. Maybe that's what it is with corn, so you might be apexual. But what if it's Pavlovian? Like, I've just associated overstimulation with anything pexual. Maybe it's just open-ended. What do you mean? Understanding your past is a great way to figure yourself out, and it sounds like you have a lower than average PEX drive, which may be inherent or conditioned. And all that's fine if you're happy, but maybe you should be figuring out where you're unsatisfied pexually and exploring that with genuine curiosity. I like that. But how do I know if it's something that I want that I'm not getting, or if it's something that I want because I know my partner's unsatisfied? This would have ended so much more beautifully if we just shut the camera off when he got done.
Why CBT does not work for autistic people. The formulation of autistic people's experience of mental health abiding by the cognitive model is likely to be a poor approximation of our experiences. A core feature of autism is that we think differently. Applying a non-autistic model of thinking is a recipe for gaslighting and confusion. I have personally had many models that I have had applied to me or applied on myself, and I have a lot of confusion about my own mental health due to this. The thought-challenging aspect of CBT is likely to be experienced as gaslighting as well, considering the challenges that autistic people face are often a realistic interpretation of what is going on. Autistic people experience discrimination in most aspects of life, and the world is not designed for us. Furthermore, there is significant trauma as part of the autistic experience. To challenge the thoughts that are coming from the trauma is inappropriate. Then you get to the behavioural component. Many, if not most, autistic individuals seeking care are in autistic burnout. To suggest to do more activities and to try to work up to activities or expose themselves to things that are distressing is harmful and likely to increase burnout and decrease hope. Autistic people need validation for the behavioural challenges that they are having and supports put in place for being able to meet needs that they can't do themselves when they're burnt out. Finally, the emotional component of CBT. Many autistic people experience alexithymia. This may be expressed as having trouble putting words to emotions. I myself find that I often just choose words that seem right at the time, and it's not entirely helpful. Furthermore, considering the very high rate of trauma in autistic people, it is likely that many emotional reactions are emotional flashbacks or very intense emotional states that need soothing. The way in which autistic people are taught to regulate their emotions can suppress their natural inclinations, such as the need to stim. This means for many of us, we haven't developed the capacity to self-soothe. So when we are asked to do this and find it difficult, then that can also create a situation where we feel like we're being gaslighted and feel quite hopeless. So what is the answer to supporting the mental health of autistic people? I'd like us to consider for a moment that mental health treatment might be iatrogenic. This means that illness can be caused by the treatment. For example, the evidence that ABA therapy increases PTSD symptoms in autistic people. What if adjusting our models slightly to appeal to autistic people is not enough? What if we need vastly different models of how we work with autistic people within society? What if we need to redefine wellness and disconnect it from our ability to work, disconnect it from our ability to do, and define it as our ability to be. Hi, I don't post a lot of crying content on here because why would I? But my name is Lolo and I sell bonnets, and last year I had the pleasure, the honor of having Lizzo support my small business. And the past couple of, I'm already starting. Past couple of weeks, I've seen 2 videos of her wearing my product. And I know to her, like, it's not that big a deal. Jesus. Not that big a deal to her, you know, but it's a really big deal to me because, like, y'all, I spent hours on that sewing machine sewing for so long. Okay, hold on. And just here, like, posting my product all the time, it just makes me so grateful, and to get messages from you guys telling me how much you love it, like, literally, it makes my day because I work so hard. And, like, I've been really excited and really nervous because I am launching a new collection within the next week or so, and I just, like, there's so many new products and stuff, so it's like, you know, I have to market more and appeal to different audiences, and it's very nerve-wracking even though I love the marketing aspect of everything. It's like, I'm nervous because I've never really launched all, like, different products before, and I think seeing that video come across my For You page was just like a sign of, you know, God, the universe telling me that, you know, it's gonna go well and people are gonna love it and receive it and love it as much as I do. But yeah, I just, like, celebrities that support small businesses, y'all don't know how much it really helps. It means to us, you know. Like, she probably just putting her bonnet on to protect her hair, as she should and as you should, but it means the world to me. It really does. So you won't see another crying video from me soon, but yeah. I would like to talk more about my new collection when I am not crying, but yeah. So Lizzo, if you see this, thank you so much. I'd love to see you doing your thing. Your album's out, your clothing line is out, you're just doing everything, and I'm supporting all of it just like you supported me. I love you, and have a great day, y'all. To you and to all of my customers, I love you guys more than you could ever know. You literally, this business has saved my life, and this business will be nothing without y'all, so thank you.
Okay, so in this conversation, this is where I learned about something called Lesbian Land. And basically, I said something about going to Europe, and she was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be, like, how I'm going to be at Lesbian Land in the U.S. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, like, oh, she's joking, like, Lesbian Land, the fuck is that? Like, ha, 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 ha. She goes, no, there's, like, a ton of communities where, like, just women can be like women. It's mostly lesbian. It's super fun. And I was like, oh, that sounds super nice, like, obviously, because I'm like, oh, I want to be around lesbians, the fuck? So she went on to tell me more about it, and I kept seeing that her white women, like, with a Y instead of an E, and I thought for a while, like, it was a typo, but then after a while, I asked her, like, why she, like, typed it like that. And she was like, oh, they just type it like that. That's just, like, what they, like, do, right? And I was like, oh, that's, like, cool. That's cute. Like, women, like, adorbs, right? Mind you, the description of the event had this description. I think, I'm not going to read it all out, but, like, I'll read this one section. You can pause and read if you want. It goes, we welcome women and girls who are accepting and respectful for specifically female spaces. We will not argue with that. Come have a good time and connect with us on the land. I'm thinking to myself, that sounds really cool. Like, I want to go, you know what I mean? I'm not seeing the dog whistle of females only. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing, because I was reading that description. I was like, what does she mean, like, argue? I'm not going to argue about that. I was like, oh, like, you don't want to, like, you don't need men around there. Girl, they weren't talking about men. That's all I'm going to say. She tells me, like, at the festival, she met her girlfriend, okay? And basically I was like, oh, good for you. Like, I want to meet a girlfriend. The fuck, like, I'm sitting here, I'm jealous of the conversation. I'm like, bro, I'm jealous. So she sends me a picture of this person, and I'm just not gonna share the picture. I'm not gonna share a picture because even when she sent it to me, she, like, blacked out the eyes because she was like, they're very private. I don't want them, I don't want them to, like, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. I was like, no big deal. But in the picture, they're, like, shirtless, right? And then with the shirtless picture, they have, like, scars, like they had top surgery, right? So after seeing that, I was like, assuming that they were non-binary, and I asked her about it. Excuse me. And I was like, oh, so she's, like, non-binary. And she was like, no. She's full woman. This is my little butch Leslie. She is actually currently detransitioning. I was like, oh, you know, congrats to her, I suppose. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, I was like, and I told her, I was like, oh, I didn't know that really occurred like commonly or even at all, because I've only seen like maybe one case, and it was like literally a BuzzFeed video of someone detransitioning. And she was like, it's actually such a conservative talking point. Actually, a lot of people would detransition. So here's actual conversational thread. I'm sorry, I'm gonna move my head a little bit. But she's like, I was like, oh, wait, that's crazy. Like, what? I've never heard that. She goes, yeah, I mean, anytime anyone mentions detransitioning, people are like, that doesn't happen. And conservatives just invented it as a fear-mongering tool, but it actually does occur. And I was like, oh, and I was like, I'm telling you guys, I'm illiterate. So I was like, oh, is it like, did they go on T and like didn't like the feeling or something? Like, I'm stupid, okay? And she was like, oh, not exactly. More like she lived as a man for 4 years, then discovered lesbian feminism. I was like, oh, okay, sounds normal to me. I'm fucking stupid. I don't have much more time, but like for the next part.
First, we'll start off with an easy question. Do you have a disability?
No.
Okay, well, you're about to get one. Are you excited? Okay. I'll give you a disability. In fact, I'm going to give you 3. Okay, so you have autism. Okay, you have a hard time when people change plans. You've got a lot of repetitive behavior. You're not super social. You have a hard time expressing yourself. Okay, so enjoy some autism. There you go. Unfortunately for you, you can't just have one. You got to have the combo set. Also got some dyslexia. It's hard to read. Math, welcome to dyscalculia. You can't add, you can't subtract, you can't count by 2s, 3s, 4s. Also can't remember any of the math you learned. You have to carry these with you in your hands.
Ooh, I just dropped one.
Oh, you can't do that.
It's
you can't do that.
It's on the
okay. You've got to keep them. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very easy, 10 being extremely difficult, you're gonna cry. How would you rate making a sandwich?
I'm gonna go with a number 1.
A number 1. Making a sandwich is pretty easy. You're actually gonna make a sandwich. You're gonna show me how you can make a sandwich.
It sucks for you.
Where are you going? Don't leave me here.
That took a really long time.
I'm digging these into my hands, you can see.
Easy task is made more difficult by having disabilities, and accommodations might take some of your difficulties away. Maybe we can give you a cheat sheet. Maybe we can give you some therapy. Maybe we can give you some medication.
Yeah, I love that, but it can lighten the load.
It can lighten the load. Need some areas of additional support or even substitution or exception in our life rather than just accommodation, because sometimes it isn't enough and it would still make this task incredibly difficult, especially if this were your job or it were timed.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Kaylin. I really like that.
This man had misogynistic views and behaviors because he did. He said so. I think that he says so because Malcolm X does not believe himself to be unworthy of critique. He wants to be critiqued. He's warning you against seeing leaders as so big, so great, so invaluable that you're willing to apologize for him, because he almost apologized for this man that would later help orchestrate his death. He started to apologize and say, well, don't we think of the ark when we think of Noah instead of him being a drunkard? You know who thought of him being a drunkard in church? A kid that is descended from lots of family members, particularly male ones that drank a lot. I never forget that Noah was a drunkard. It is the first thing that I think about him. Those of us that are harmed by misogyny don't ever have the luxury of the rose-colored glasses that everybody else, not everybody else, that Black men in particular get to see about the civil rights leaders. They were doing things that had you in mind. They were doing things that harmed me. No, I don't forget.
Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's nobody's fault.
If you made it to the end, thank God. Please send this to as many people as possible. I swear to God, like, you guys are saints. Thank you so much. Because I promise you, we all could have been me. You know what I'm saying? Or what I could have been. Here's the last part of the story, and here's the end of the timeline. I was still talking to this person for a while, as you can probably gather from those messages. We talked for probably a year, 2 years, or something like that. And messages just like this, often, okay? But it wasn't until I graduated that a non-binary classmate of mine exposed this person, the girl, for having a literally turfy Tumblr. Like, I mean, I'm talking bad, like, exposed her. They go on their story on Instagram and they're like, yeah, like, I found out this person's a turf. They, like, spell out everything that they've been saying in those DMs, but like they're literally like, this is you know, bad. Like this is, you know the word. I don't even want to show you guys the Tumblr because it was, everything she said to me, it was obviously 10 times more disgusting and ruthless and disrespectful and honestly full of hatred that I'm not gonna lie, guys, I started crying. Like I know that sounds like so lame, bro, like on God. This isn't even about me. It was just like, I went on that Tumblr page, guys, and it was full of the most like sickening stuff. I felt sick reading it. I was reading everything, every post, everything, and I almost was like, this can't be true. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, this is my friend. She wouldn't say these things. She's smart. You know what I'm saying? If that non-binary person at my college hadn't exposed her, there's no way that I would have made it out this pipeline. She was spoon feeding me these concepts and I was just eating and gobbling. I didn't understand I didn't understand what I was even agreeing to. Does that make sense? Until again, it was too late. When I tell you guys, it is not enough to say that you are anti-TERF. You have to know the rhetoric they spew. You have to know how they're spoon feeding this information. You have to know the dog whistle terms. And I'm going to go over this tomorrow, but you have to put the work in. It cannot be just a loose and fast, I'm against this. Like I said in the beginning of this video, there's a reason why they're called TERFs and not this. And it's because they're snakes.